I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts, and this webinar tutorial is brought to you today by Ministry Design Training. We're going to talk about two different documents today as we go through this tutorial. The first one is selecting the design professionals. We want you to understand that as you go through to do this, you're going to need an architect and engineers to design your building. And so as you follow that normal process of how do we select the design team, which may include architect or architects, different kinds of engineers, and then of course interior designers and landscape architects, audio, visual, lighting, and acoustical engineers who come alongside you at the front end of your project to help you put together the right design to meet your ministry needs. So in selecting the design professionals, we provided this document for you to assist you with understanding what we have meant in the video and to support what we've taught you in the video, selecting your design professionals, and then one on selecting your architect and general contractor. I have put together here a list of questions for you and put them into segments. If you want a more thorough example of questions, there are 74 questions provided in Robert Knoll's book on Preparing to Build and also Stephen Anderson's book on Preparing to Build. They're both here on this website along with the MDC, Ministry Design Concept website, where they ask 74 questions to the architect. But I've taken and condensed that to try and give you the key questions that you need in order to help you pilot your way through how to go about this. You do want to talk to the architect about their background and references. How long have they been in business? You may not realize it, but under the United States requirements for the laws, require an architect to work as an intern, work for another architectural firm before they're allowed to go out on their own. So you want to know how long they've been in business. They may have worked for another architectural firm for some years and may have just started out on their own. But it's good to know how long they've been working as an architect. Secondly, what percentage of their work is designing ministries, and in particular churches, and in particular beyond that, your kind of church in your area? What size firm do they have? Are they farming out their engineer and consultants, or do they employ their engineers and consultants? Don't be surprised that the majority of the guys you talk to are subcontracting with an engineer firm to provide the structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering. Of course, they're not going to come ask you for business, I think, unless they're licensed in the state or going to get licensed in the state, but it still is a question that you want to confirm. You say, is that important? Yeah, I built one. Worked for a company that built one years ago where the architect designed the plans, and I don't think he was licensed in the state. He was just a friend of somebody in the church. So that kind of thing has happened. It's why I mention it. It's a technical thing that you do want to get covered. Does the architect commonly design church projects similar to your needs? So not only the aesthetics of your building, but your needs. Does he understand how you function and your formula for successfully making disciples, for carrying out your calling? Is the architect familiar with your denomination and ministry style? Does the architect have a particular design style? Does it match your churches? In other words, architects have design DNA, genetic code in their DNA, where they, for one reason or another, naturally gravitate toward a certain style. It may be a conviction that they're trying to help churches save money, and so they're going to go to a rectangle building. They're going to have an open floor style in their building where you can move your walls around, and there's only going to be some definite concrete fixed areas in their building, meaning a kitchen with all its plumbing and the restrooms with all its plumbing, and they're looking for efficiency to give churches a bottom dollar costs for their buildings. Well, that's a style. Then you have architectural firms who are craftsmen, and they put a lot of weight on having a beautiful building and the finest of everything in the building, and they're going to design that way. Other architects may immediately run toward a colonial style church, a traditional style church, a contemporary style church, a public school style look in their buildings and the way they do it. And you need to understand, if left to themselves, where do they head? And you would be wise to learn that. Type and policy limits of the insurance carried by the architect. Again, that's like the state license. It's a question you need to know, you need to ask, you need to see it, and it's a base you have to cover, a rock you have to turn over. Recent ministry projects, where, when, and any similar to yours. Could you tour them and get photos, sketches? Could you talk to the people who they built them for? Will the architect provide references and the services provided to these references? And who provided the services? Was it the architect, his employees, or an outside professional? I ask this question because here's something that has happened in the past. Church architects and other architects would have a front man who maybe owns the company. He's the president of the company. He's an architect. He goes to talk to the church. The church likes what they see. They hire the architectural firm. And what they come to find out is in the way the architectural firm is organized, they're not doing a good job of communicating from the president who is selling his architectural services to the people back in the office that are doing the work, or the engineers that are subcontracted, and the client, the church, doesn't end up always getting what they said they wanted because there's a communication breakdown. So if you're going to go through this, you might want to discern how the firm is put together. So ask point-blank questions and drill down into that to find out who is actually doing the work. Another architectural firm that I worked with had the president, the guy that was out dealing with the churches, his staff back home. One of them was no longer at the firm, and it affected what kind of work he put out. And so you want to get an idea of what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. An important question is L here. Is the architect confident he can design within budget? So you want to don't take his word for it. Check on his track record. Another question I would ask, if you could hunt up churches that he designed plans for that were never built, to find out why they were never built. All you're trying to do is see who works with diligence and is persistent and consistent to work with churches who design buildings that they can afford and do choose to build. Now, before you're too hard on the architect and engineers, there's a lot of wheels in motion here, and a lot of them are not controlled by our friends, the architects. These are very fine men that I've worked with, and my personal friends, not just friends as a industry professional or industry partner. And so I don't want to malign them in any way in this. I just want you to make wise choices. I have no axe to grind with anyone. I simply am representing Christ and his church. Now, is the architect confident he can design within budget? So what you're asking him to design and what your budget is, as we've gone through those steps, he needs to look at that and make certain that he can do it. And what are you going to get? A Chevy, Buick, Cadillac, or a blend of those three together in some way? Another question to ask him is, who is the contact person? Is the same person doing the design work? Comes back to my earlier comments about one guy you're talking to and somebody else is doing the work, and you don't end up with it going well. So if that architect's going back to his studio and is working with the engineers and his design team and he is hands-on, you probably have a better chance to get the building designed as you related, as you communicated, as you desire it, than you will if there is a gap between and the guy taking the information's not on the scene. just an observation, and I'm sure there's pushback going to come from people who look at that and go, okay, that's not true. What is the architect's mediation process for resolving disputes? Is it binding arbitration? Do you have to go legal? I mean, what are they going to require of you? And you look at the AIA contracts as they're handed to you. By the way, you can't just go find those on the internet. They have it set up, the AIA, Architects Institute of America, where you have to buy them. So architects are buying the AIA contracts from the organization, and they're just not out there floating around. Proposals, I'll show you one in a moment, those are floating around, and you can get one, and I just put together one of what would be any number of different proposals. Proposed project questions. What do you ask them when talking about your project? Does the architect see strong challenges and solutions to these challenges, budget, time, or land restraints as he looks at your project? Before the architect meets with you, has he done any homework to look at your land and any restrictions, your zoning, anything that he might need to know to give you and talk with you squarely? Because he is vetting your project while you're vetting him, screening him. So does he see anything there? How does the architect understand the church's value, vision, mission, and game plan, goals, and constraints? Can the architect explain this in his own words? One way to make certain that he is understanding who you are and your ministry design and your wishes is to have him repeat those back to you. So once you've given it to him, wait and meet again or call and talk to him and ask him just to repeat back to you, ask him questions that gets him to show what he knows. What has he retained of what you've told him? That go a long way toward helping you understand how he's going to retain and synthesize all the information to give you the building that you want. Can the architect meet your design schedule? I mean, you hire a guy and he takes 12 months to get the design ready, and you wanted it done in 4 months. Talk to him about the design schedule. The next question, D, is the architect designing his image for your ministry, his vision for your ministry, or yours? Is he busy putting in what he thinks is best for your ministry or what you think is best? How good a track record and how happy have other churches been with how well the architect designs? Does it meet their ministry needs? Then you want to ask them, what are the steps in the architect's master planning process? How does he collect the information from you? How much information is he collecting? What will you need to provide for him? All of these are questions that are sitting right there that will help you determine who you're best suited to work with. When you ask him about the steps and the construction documents, if you've been listening to our webinars, I've gone through this in different ones to make certain you catch it. During the master plan process, he's gonna produce a site plan, first phase elevation and floor plans, and some documentation to go with this, and then a presentation package, either a computerized 3D or architectural renderings or both that you can use. And once you've released him to start the construction drawings, he's going to take a period of months for he and his engineers to work together to put together the detailed plans that the general contractor is going to use to build your building and to do your site work. Well, ask him what the steps are in his construction document stage. What will he need from the church? Is he going to do it in 30%, 50%, 70%, 85%, 100%? And you're going to have opportunity to do cost estimates, upgrade those, update those all the way through. You're going to have an opportunity to look at it. Hopefully you've put together a team that includes builder or builders that are estimating this and getting the cost and then examining what he's designing. Not that the architect is not going to do a good job, but in the multitude of counselors, in this case plan reviewers, is safety. And where a guy who designs all the time, think of proofreading the document you wrote. If you have proofreaders look at it, outside eyeballs on it, you may catch something that you became unaware of as the designer. And so it's just good standard practice for you to do that, but you want to know what the steps are. What services does the architect provide during construction and the warranty period? Is it separate from his construction drawings and master plan period? And you want him there, by the way, but you want to know what he charges and how often he's on site, what kind of support he gives. Matter of fact, you want to know what kind of support he gives regardless of the delivery system that you're providing, meaning design, build, design, bid, build, or construction management, because the subcontractors are going to have questions. Is the architect going to be involved, and is he willing to do, as a part of his services, answer those questions, make clarifications, and make decisions so that the subcontractors and suppliers can get their questions answered so they can give you a more detailed, perfected bid so you can get better prices and better service. Now, H, how long should the master plan and construction documents take to develop so they're ready for stamping and then permitting? What presentations tools does the architect include? Are they in-house or out-of-house? Is he having to subcontract that with another firm, or does he have staff that is producing that? You want to know who's doing the work and who's providing the services, and is it the architectural firm, or is he going to others and he's employing them, or is he letting them contract directly with you? You just got to know, because remember, he who holds the contract holds control. And so you also might save money, but you also might lose control. So you want to look at your cash and your control, the risk they're taking and the rewards you get. Now moving to the next one, fees and contract questions. What are his fees and payment schedule? Is he going to upload you, front end load you with fees and payments? Is he going to nickel and dime you through the expenses? Services for each fee, make him break it down. Fees for each additional services, options of adding services, reimbursable expenses. If you have him come back to you over and over again and he lives 150 miles from you, he's going to charge you a mileage rate. If he has to spend the night, he's going to charge you for lodging and food, and you want to know what those are. Any anticipated additional costs to the architectural normal fees. What fees are not included in the architect's services? I've listed some choices there for you. What does it cost to dissolve the relationship with the architect at any stage? What redesign costs will the church incur if the design comes back over budget when it's put out to bid? Well, hopefully we're heading that off by doing updated cost estimates as we go through the process. Is the architect going to work with the church to design within budget? And folks, you say, well, why do you harp on that? And the reason why I harp on it is that the best I've been able to tell by talking to numerous Christian architects, men who know the Lord and design churches, is that the percentage of designs done by a church architect or any architect and put out to bid, that not one time has an architect that I've talked to said that the percentage of churches that come back with their designs over designed, they're too expensive to build, is over 50%, and I've been told as high as 75% of the time when an architect designs a set of plans without a builder with skin in the game, estimating the cost to hold some accountability and keep it where you can build it, it comes back over design 50 to 75% of the time. I wish I had hard numbers for you. I'm not quite sure who and how you would go about tracking that, but that's what I've been told in the industry by any number of architects. And so they're concerned about it. Now, having said that, that's not meant to give the architect a blind eye any more than it is to give your personal eye a black eye, because it's not a hand or an elbow or a leg or a knee or a foot or a hand. The system is incomplete, and so everyone's trying to figure out, at least I hope they are, how to design within budget so that the client can afford it. You're a steward of those things entrusted to you. Your ministry is dependent upon that design being affordable within your budget of what you're going to spend or can spend. How do you stay out of trouble? You design within budget and you take the necessary steps to make that happen. Will there be any charges for changes required by the local building department or other government agencies? Will the architect talk with the local authorities at the start of the project? Will the architect commit to obtaining the answers to the research questions in the master plan research questionnaire I've given you, or will he design first and research afterwards? You don't want one that goes and does the design and then goes and does the research to make certain that it's within design. Get one who will take the time to go research it and get confirmation of all the things, the questionnaire I gave you on the master plan research questions. I gave you 23 questions. It was taken from this site selection questionnaire, and that's a 9-page document full of questions. And you want to make certain that they're not just designing it without thought of doing anything other than taking your money, because you want to be able to build it, don't you? What is the fee structure or fee schedule for change orders after the plans are complete? You change your mind, the government changes their mind, the architect had mistakes in the plan that had to be changed during design. That costs money. Catch them during the design phase, not during the construction phase. But you're likely going to have one or many change orders that requires the architect to adjust the plans. What changes do you incur from him for that? His fault, your fault, the government's fault, nobody's fault. It happens. What are you going to be charged? Who is financially responsible for correcting errors and omissions in the design? L, will the architect consider a fixed price agreement for each phase instead of a percentage? Some architects that I have worked with have started out with the percentage and then given a fixed price. The problem where you can run into that is he may be getting paid a fixed price to design a 20,000 square foot building, and you end up only being able to design a 10,000 square foot building. So if you're going to do it that way, he's going to get paid double of what he should have gotten paid, and you're paying twice as much. And so be careful there that you navigate your way through it. I don't see that happen very much, but I have seen it happen, and the church paid for a whole lot more building than was designed. Secondly, if you're going to do that, have him design all 20,000 square feet, but design it into 2 phases so he's done the work that you paid him for. And seek counsel as you go through that step, because every situation can be different. What assistance do you give during the permitting stage? Is he going to submit them for permitting or hand it to you and you don't know what in the world you're doing? Now, the GC will go pull the permit because he wants to get the building started. But is the architect going to submit it for permitting, answer the questions, and make certain that you get it, the stamped plans from the architect, permitted by the local authorities? And if he doesn't, is he going to go back and make the plans, adjust the plans so he can get them permitted? Because if you don't get them permitted, guess what? You're not going to be building that building. Somebody's got to take the bull by the horns here and make certain this happens. Number 4 is reference evaluation. What to ask the architect's references. Do they stay on schedule? Do they live up to expectations? Are they completed within budget? Were there any major design problems? All of these are questions that you need to ask. So find out who the architects that you're considering have used and ask them these questions. If you can email it to them and get them to answer in writing, that should really help you. If you can't, then you're going to have to take notes, and I would suggest you have more than one person listening to that conference call to be able to hear what they're saying. You can use freeconferencecall.com and set up the conference call with the churches and other references, not just churches, to ask these questions to them. Is the architect congenial? Did he solve issues correctly or hide from them? I've seen architects not ever solve the problem during construction. Of course, I work for National Church Builders, and it was left open to the foreman or the project manager on site to solve the problem. You want to make certain that architect is, if he's going to lead, let him lead and let him solve his design problems. Does he have a healthy relationship? Did the church enjoy him? Would they hire him again? Did the architect listen? I have some architect friends who the first thing they do is they close their mouth, turn on their recorder, sit down with the client, and listen. And then they ask drill down questions to drill into further, and they listen again. And then they ask questions again, and they drill down again. And what they're trying to do is figure out who you are in your essence, your genetic code, your DNA, your future, what you believe is your passion, what you ought to build next, and that's mission critical. They're trying to learn about you. And so you want them to learn by listening and observing. I'd have them come to your services and watch activities that you're doing so they can take those activities, understand them, and march them over to a new facility. Ask the church to grade the architect's strong and weak points. You know, we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? So will the architect. Ask the church what they would do differently next time with their architect and design. So drill down, and when they answer your question, you may have follow-up questions and drill down a little more. And then thank those churches and those leaders for answering your questions. And by the way, you might end up trying to talk to more than just the pastoral staff that went through the building program, but also talk to the lay people who did it and some industry professionals. You know, if you have a personal friend who's an engineer who works with a bunch of architects, they may or may not open up and talk to you because they have something to lose there by harming an architect they work with. But to try and get an insider's perspective. Interview evaluation. What did you take away from the interview? Here are questions. Was the architect really interested? Did he work hard to win your business? Is he maybe too busy? Ask him what his work board looks like with future projects. How many does he have going right now? What's his bandwidth? How many projects can he handle at one time? How easy is he to get a hold of? And on and on. Is there anything that sets one architect apart from another? Is the architect a good fit, the best fit? Why him instead of others? Can you explain that to your congregation? Does the architect understand you? Will he be easy to work with and put the interest of the church ahead of his own interest? Here's the truth, what I call a truthity. Some architects are great salesmen. They interview very well, but perform poorly. Other architects interview poorly, but perform great. And you got to get behind the curtain there to see what kind of work they're producing right now and to estimate whether or not do they fall in one of these categories. Because there are guys who interview poorly and perform poorly, or they interview great and they perform great. And you've got to find out who that is by being an investigator. Is the architect qualified for your project? Now, let's move from that and talk about another area, civil engineers. You can hire an architect that lives in Kansas and your church is in Alabama, and he can design the building according to the codes and so forth, the engineers. But when it comes to a civil engineer, you want a local engineer who is dealing with the environment right there and kind of has his hands in the dirt. And if you understand what I'm saying, so you want a local guy. Check references. Does he work well with the government authorities and architects and with the church? And is he going to do his research questions beforehand? So you want to know what he is willing to do. Now, here's a short list of questions that I provided for you. There's 10 of them. Take those and start with those. But that kind of summarizes the 74 questions that are in the books. This perhaps just takes and narrows it down as a start, because you don't want to hand an architect 74 questions to you. And you may send them a list of questions and start with that and then drill down. So here we'll step into the selection process. Number one, you can select an architect and engineer that is a part of your congregation or closely connected to your congregation. That's one way of doing it, that you have church family or you trust them, and that's how you're selecting them. Secondly, you can go through an interview process. All the questions I'm getting you're going through, and whoever interviews the best, that's who you're going to select. Thirdly, if your project is large enough and you can find enough good qualified architects, you can do the interview process and then go through this process where you invite qualified designers to produce a master plan with floor plans and elevations for your consideration. This gives you an opportunity to work with them and see them at work. While this is preferable for the church, it's asking a great deal of work for the architect with no guarantee of them winning the project. But what they're doing, if they're hungry enough and your project is large enough or is a key project to them in their needed portfolio, in other words, it'll bring them more work and help them break into your area. The 3 or 4 of them may come along and work with you, and in the webinar, selecting your architect and general contractor, I go through this process in pretty strong detail to help you understand the steps to do that. So you can select them in any of these 3 ways. I believe the most preferred way is number 3, because you get to work with them hand in hand, and they're going to come away showing you what their vision for your first phase is, the floor plan, the elevation, and the site plan, to show you where they're going to put it. And you can see what you like and what architect is designing most in line with your wishes. Now, the next document that I prepared for you was a simple sample architectural fee proposal. So this is not a contract. This is something they would give you to explain in a page or 2 what they foresee doing for you and what the process is in steps. So I put a note here: proposals may vary by architects. Surely they will. Contracts between the architect and the church are generally AIA documents, which are different than the sample proposal below. So this is not a contract. This is a sample proposal. And as you read down through this, you may find they give you, here's a proposal. Their firm is excited to work with you. They have been designing religious facilities for X number of years. They operate upon certain principles, their core values of what guides them in the way they serve you. And they give you an understanding of what they think the project consists of, what work, size, and cost, and all, and so forth. Again, this is just a sample, but they're going to put those in the first couple of paragraphs, perhaps. Then they're going to talk about the master plan. Now, they may call it a phase 1 schematic design, so it's a master plan with a floor plan, an elevation, and a site plan. And they're going to give that to you and maybe talk about working with the local government authorities in the church and anyone else that's involved in it. See that here they're going to research the existing municipal utility locations, and they're going to work with the Board of Zoning and Appeals and the Planning and Zoning Department and the county staff or city staff, and they're going to go through and do their research. That's what they're telling you in the proposal. So those questions I was asking, these guys are answering part of those questions in this sample, and I'm wanting you to see what it may look like. Now, this particular sample, they used our MDT long-term planning vision for the church campus and the church facilities planning questionnaire. So these are things I had given to a church to do, and this sample included those. So in my navigation, I'm providing these for you so that you can give the architect the information he needs. Again, it's a part of your training to help you prepare to go through the master plan. He's telling you what he's going to provide for you here, and we would develop a rendered computer model of the master plan in phase 1. We'll develop a construction cost estimate. So here the architect is doing it. I'm telling you to get builders involved, either one that you have negotiated a fee with and hired him and he's working with the architect during master plan, or you've got 3 or 4 general contractors who, for the privilege of bidding your project, are going to give you real cost estimates as they're developed, all with the purpose of keeping your building within budget and helping you perfect the design. Phase 2 is design development. This is where they're going to go through, and it's kind of in between the master plan and the construction documents, and so they're tweaking it and doing some other things here and working with the local government to make certain that what you're planning to do is within it, and they're determining the size and the aesthetics and the character of the project so that you're online. Again, it's a step to help you move toward phase 3, which is the construction documents. Now, once you get to this phase, you don't want to go be changing every different things during the construction document. You're doing that during phase 1 and 2, and you're hammering out and finalize your decision. The architect's giving you time for your decisions to marinate and for you to meditate on them so that you have thought through how you're going to use the space and tried to walk through with his plans in your mind's eye to consider the ramifications of every cubic square inch of your facility. Because when you get to the construction drawings, to come back and keep making them change things, at some point they're going to start charging you redesign fees because you didn't do it during the first 2 phases here. You wanted to wait and not really bear down on yourself during the phase 3. Now, if I'm your pre-construction navigator, I'm helping you do this and facilitating this as a helper. I'm not an architect and I'm not a builder. I'm a pastor who has built churches and worked professionally as a project consultant for nearly a decade to help churches through this. That's my role. I'm a consultant, a coach, a navigator. Now, you get to phase 4 here and you're bidding it out to 3 or 4 or 5 or a whole bunch more general contractors who are going to give you a price. So depending on the delivery system you've used, you've got a bidding process. You have a bidding phase with construction managers. You probably have one with the design build guys that they're pulling together and putting together the bids, but you may not have any access to them. And certainly with the traditional way of design it, bid it out, and build it, you have a bid package that is coming to give to the general contractors for them to give you prices. It all depends on which delivery system you use. And then there is the construction administration that during construction, the architect will serve you for a fee, and you need to know what he is doing, how often he is there, how much support he's going to give, how is he going to interact with all the subs and the general contractor to help you get through the construction phase safely. You want to end up with the building being built correctly. So here is a list of things. Will they review and verify payment applications from the general contractor or from your project manager if you're using the delivery system of construction management, pure agency or at risk, and submittals and shop drawings and product data and samples to confirm the quality of the work that is being done and the quality of the products that are there. You want to know what they're doing for you. And you want to compare apples to apples with other architects as you go through to select them. Well, I hope this is helping you. At the bottom of your screen of this video that you're watching is a comment section where you can ask me questions. If you have questions, type them in. And then weekly or every other week, we'll be answering these questions both in a live webinar video, GoToMeeting is what I'm using. You'll get an invitation to that or be made available where you can bring your questions and I'll answer the questions. Then we're recording it, making it available as a part of the library, and we'll have a frequently asked questions section where you can get your questions asked, and you'll be a part of helping to develop that. So write down any questions you've got. If I don't readily know the answer to them, I have architects and engineers and other industry professionals who can come alongside us and may partner with us in the live webinar to answer your questions, to give you more support than just me telling you by video, but to be able to talk back and forth. And of course, we're always available to be, you can engage with us as a pre-construction navigator to come in and one-on-one answer your questions. I trust this has been helpful. Lord bless you as you move ahead to honor him and to win souls and make disciples. This is Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Training.